So what should our military personnel do about this? There are military experts who have plans, you know, at least macro plans on the sort of things, the sort of steps we need to take that we're not taking right now under this pretend commander-in-chief, Barack Milhouse Obama. And the former NATO Supreme Commander was recently on the news explaining the steps we need to take. Now, I want you to listen to each step, particularly at the very end, the final step that he's urging us to take, okay? The final step. Go.
I think we are going to need about 15,000 U.S. troops in Iraq in order to bolster the Iraqi security forces. We need to maintain about 10,000 in Afghanistan. That's not hundreds of thousands, but it's a significant number. Second, we need to amp up the bombing campaign. Thirdly, we need to go after them in cyber. Fourthly, we're going to have to build, as Mike says, on Arab intel resources in the region for boots on the ground. It's a strategy you can put in place, but we have not pursued it. And the big point here at the end of the day is we cannot just go after the symptom, which is what's happened in Brussels today. We have to go after the root of this. I think it's time for a new administration.
Ooh, the former Supreme Commander of NATO. It's time for a new administration. He's exactly right. The going after the symptom, shutting down a country, going door to door searching for the enemy? Let ISIS shut down. Let them go door to door in search of us. Let them be looking over their shoulders. Let them look in the sky, hear our bombers. By the way, have you ever heard those bombers in the sky? I've heard some of them. They shake buildings, and they'll shake your nerves. And imagine if you hear them coming and they're dropping things on you. And I don't mean leaflets telling them how Christians love Muslims. I mean bombs blowing them off the face of the earth. Oh, yes. Now, why would the NATO, former Supreme Commander of NATO, think we need a new administration and a new president? I can't imagine why. Can you? Well, maybe I can. Check this out. Go.
Seen you throw out the first pitch. You didn't play much baseball, did you?
You know what? Now,
stop right there. That was a gutsy question. A couple of years ago, when Obama threw out the first pitch, well, the picture speaks for itself. But when you throw a ball, you're supposed to throw, you're not supposed to throw it, from the elbow. You're supposed to throw it with the shoulder and the body. But Obama was kind of pushing it. Anyway, go ahead.
Can I just make a point? My dad wasn't a Hall of Famer. So, you had a slight benefit in the whole...
By the way, all of us out there, were any of your dads Hall of Famers? Is that what you need in order to learn how to throw baseball? I mean, there are bigger problems we have with Obama, but it was humiliating, especially to him. Go ahead.
I will say this, and I've talked to President Bush about this, I've talked to other folks. We do a lot of tough stuff as president, and by definition, you don't end up being president if you don't handle stress well. Nothing is more stressful than throwing out a first pitch.
I remember. So here we are, the commander-in-chief in Cuba, living it up with some ESPN sportscasters, talking about the stress a president has to go through and does go through, and nothing's more stressful than throwing out the first pitch in a baseball game. This guy's head, I'm sorry, folks, is just not right. It's just not right. I don't know how he can turn off the scenes of what he saw in Belgium and then have a grand old time. I don't know how he can pretend sitting there in that stadium with these other jokers, not realizing what's going on in that police state that they call Cuba, that people are being tortured, people are being beaten up, dragged off the streets because of his appearance in that country. People have been executed summarily. They get a 10-minute trial and off they go. The drug running that our intelligence agencies know go through Cuba and have enriched Fidel and Raul Castro, who are incredibly wealthy. When the average monthly income of a family in Cuba is $24, as I explained yesterday, there's two different currencies, one for the people, which has almost no value, and then one for the elite, which of course has all the value. Who do you think is going to own the Taco Bells that they want to create and set up in Cuba? Who do you think is going to own the Marriott hotels there? You think the people earn 24 phony Cuban pesos a month? You think they're going to have any role in it? No, they'll be cleaning out the toilets with their bare hands, because that's communist paradise, as you know. Now, also, Obama I'm not even going to explain this. Just take a look. Go. They're doing the wave. There's Michelle, there's Barack, there's Raul, who can barely raise his arms above his head, doing the wave at this baseball game. Oh, it's so pleasant. Now, if Donald Trump did that, they'd be referring to him as Hitler with the Hitler wave. You know, hey, that's Hitler, Hitler. But here's Barack Obama actually sitting next to a Hitlerian-type figure, Raul Castro, doing the wave. Hey, that's fun. That's a joke. That's just great. This is just pathetic. Which is why we go back to the NATO Supreme Commander, former Supreme Commander, says it's time for a new administration. What do you think ISIS thinks when they see something like this? What do you think the Gestapo-like regime in Red China thinks when they look at a man doing this? What do you think Vladimir Putin thinks when he looks at this? They think he's a joke. And so they're on the move all over the world. But even more, what do you think our allies think? Like Benjamin Netanyahu was watching Obama having a blast with a tyrant when Obama treats him with absolute disregard and disrespect. Obama has it upside down, or as I call it, Obama in Wonderland. Maybe it's Obama in Obama land. Our allies, many of them, are treated like crap, unless, of course, they're leftists like this Trudeau in Canada. Or the enemy, he's constantly reaching out to them. You know, there's another story in the news today that John F. Student Kerry, I like to call him mashed potato face, and I call him that, not out of any disrespect, of course, but whoever did his face again, I feel like they shot mashed potato into it. I could be wrong about that. We gave several billions of dollars to the Iranian regime while we were talking to them and negotiating with them apparently early on. And now the State Department has provided that information to Congress. We didn't have that information before. I believe it is correct what I'm saying. The exact date and time that it was done, I don't know. But they got a $2 billion advance. Congress wasn't even aware of it. This is why these regimes thumb their nose at us. This is why the regime in Tehran shoots ICBMs and then laughs at us, even though they're violating our new agreement. This is why they shot a missile within really close range of one of our ships, because they know nothing will happen. This is why they picked up some of our sailors off the high sea under some pretext and then went ahead and humiliated them, because they know Barack Obama won't do a damn thing. But they also knew that Ronald Reagan would punish them. And that's the difference. And that's why that retired Supreme Commander of NATO is right. We need a new administration, but I would take it further. Not just a new administration, but the right administration. And that is not Hillary Clinton, who was Secretary of State under this man. Certainly not Bernie Sanders, even though I don't think that's going to happen. And again, in my view, it's Ted Cruz. But even Donald Trump, yes, would be far superior to Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton, which is why, if he should become the Republican nominee, I certainly will vote for him, even though I've endorsed Ted Cruz. Now, there was a Democrat primary last evening as well, in Arizona, in Utah, and Idaho. And Hillary Clinton won, well, who cares what she won? But she gave her victory speech. Now, it's very painful to listen to Hillary Clinton, in my humble opinion, because of the way she screeches and yells. Not because she's a woman, not because she's always focused on having us vote based on her genitalia, just because it's ear-shattering. But I want to make a point. Go ahead.
The last thing we need, my friends, are leaders who incite more fear. In the face of terror, America doesn't panic. We don't build walls or turn our backs on our allies.
Let's stop. What do we do, Hillary, Madam Secretary of State? You, John Kerry, Barack Obama, your party, your ideology, help give rise to ISIS. You have blood on your hands. You have blood on your hands. You're in no position to lecture anybody else. You were involved in these crazy policies. You were involved in leaving all these people who fought side by side with us against Saddam Hussein. All these people, so many of them killed, so many of them captured. You were the first Secretary of State under Barack Obama. And you, as Secretary of State, helped allow Vladimir Putin, that's right, to become powerful and expand Russia's clout. You stood silent, pretty much, while Red China was moving into the South China Sea. Before you were Secretary of State, they didn't have these pretend islands in the South China Sea. You and your policy led to Libya collapsing, where Al-Qaeda and ISIS and every other damn terrorist miscreant has a base and tons of oil. And you lied and covered up for what took place in Libya. Oh, yes, you did. And the death of 4 brave Americans. You are in no position to tell us what we need and what we don't need. And yes, of course we need a wall. Of course we need a wall. And Americans need to be ready for this war, and Americans need to understand we're at war. And I'm telling you something else. Should she get elected president, this is why I will vote. Cruz, Trump, against her. Against her. Can you imagine? Can you imagine her as commander-in-chief? Can you imagine her making Supreme Court appointments? Can you imagine her controlling all of Congress? My God, Eva Perón, there she is. There she is. Her victories are our defeats. And it's a sad thing, quite frankly. The Democrats had an opportunity to really defeat her in the Democrat primary with somewhat of a moderate candidate. But I guess those days are over for the Democrat Party. There's no such thing as a moderate candidate anymore. It's a radical left party. It is amazing to look at what's happened to this party. There are 2 candidates. One is an out-of-the-closet Marxist, Bernie Sanders, and one is an in-the-closet Marxist who happens to like wealth and money, much like Raul, and that's Hillary Clinton. That's where the Democrat Party is today. So we must defeat the Democrat Party. And my great fear is we might not. My great fear is they're going to win. And my great fear is they're not only going to win, they're going to win big, depending on how the rest of this election goes. And I've got all summer to talk about it, and I will. But I've been looking at this extremely closely. I've been digging into the details, state by state, and not just from a statistical point of view. I'm looking at the shifts in the demographics. I'm looking at how the Republican Party is splintered. I'm looking at how Donald Trump, you say, some people, well, he's going to attract all these new voters. Hell, he's not going to attract many new voters. I'm very concerned about this, as I'm sure many of you are. So I will vote for whoever the Republican nominee is against her. But in so many ways, we've blown this election. The opportunity we had to promote our principles, to explain to the American people who we are, how a conservative president with a fairly conservative Congress and a constitutionalist-oriented Supreme Court could bring back the kind of liberty and prosperity and security that past generations fought for and have lived under. Country spiraling out of control. The left has controlled really every aspect of our federal government. And to the extent they don't, we have the Republican establishment basically throwing in with them. But I'm very, very concerned that we've blown a huge opportunity here. I hope not, but I fear we have, to elect the most conservative man president of the United States since Ronald Reagan. I haven't given up hope. I haven't given up hope. My goal is not to dispirit you. But this is LevinTV. It's not the Fox News Channel or MSNBC or CNN, and I'm just telling you the truth, at least from where I see it. Social media. We love social